Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. So let's first talk about the thoughts. So the first thing in the longing is the idea that I long for something different. And what we spoke the previous times is because I long something different, what I'm going to do, I have a clear vision of what that difference can be. I understand that every moment is a new possibility, which is the idea of being in the present and being in the now. And I have the power of imagination coupled together with my understanding of what is, with my desire to change and to change things. And I can imagine myself in a different place. Okay, these are steps to get out of this condition. And the third component is what we're going to talk about tonight, is taking action. So that's an important component. So you can long, you can create, you can imagine, you can have desire. These are all preparatory steps in order to get to a place of freedom, to get to a place of your own constriction. And then you have to do something physical. And the physical thing that we do in the Seder night is drinking the cups of wine. So the physical drinking of the 4 cups of wine embodies the quality of the doing, not just the understanding and the experience, but you're actually doing something that has a visceral, physical reaction in the body. So if you say we celebrate on Pesach night or the Seder, we drink 4 cups of wine. Why don't we drink? And one of the reasons why we drink 4 cups of wine corresponds to the 4. Are you familiar with this? Like the 4 languages of redemption. That Tzesi, I'll take you out, I'll redeem you, I'll take you, and I'll free you. These are the 4 descriptions of redemption, so we drink it. It also corresponds to the 4 cups, which is mentioned in the dreams of Pharaoh, dreams of Joseph. Joseph, together with the butler, and it's mentioned these 4 cups. So why don't we drink 4 cups of apple juice? Why do you drink 4 cups of wine? Why wine? What's the quality of wine that we drink it with wine? Now, the superficial reason, it's not the superficial one, but the simple reason is because in Judaism, anytime you want to do something that has a remembrance of something, is a chayil b'yayin. We remember it through wine. Anytime we want to mark something as a celebratory event, or that it's marked as something special, we drink wine. So that's why you drink wine on their chuppah, you drink wine at a bris. There's always a drinking of wine. In Kiddush, that's like the sacred liquid that we do to mark it. But the deeper reason is because wine is compounded. If you drink apple juice, 1 cup, 3 cups, 5 cups, you're just gonna get more bloated, but nothing's actually gonna change in your brain chemistry. If you drink wine, the first cup is a little less, second cup is a little more, third cup you're tipsy, fourth cup maybe you're drunk, maybe 5th cup, 6th cup, depends on you hold your liquor. But the idea of the wine is that it's progressive and it's compounded, which means each one builds on the other one. So it's not just 4 separate cups. If it's 4 separate cups, then you drink 4 cups of orange juice. Incidentally, I don't know if this is really true, but apparently people can get intoxicated through milk. Are you familiar with this?
Certain types of milk.
Certain types of milk.
Yeah, fermented milk.
And like sniffing milk?
No, but even the Torah talks about a case where Yael and sister, she drinks the milk.
The old fermented milk you could
There
get.
was a way, there's even the halacha, it's like if you get drunk with milk. And that's why,
Not milk.
theoretically, if you don't have wine, and the only other liquids that you have is, let's say, between orange juice, apple juice, and milk, someone would say maybe you should actually drink 4 cups of milk. Possible. It's a possible answer. The famous story about Chaim Brisker, one of the great sages that lived about 150 years ago, 100 years ago, that someone came to his house, a woman came to his house and asked Chaim, could she celebrate Pesach with 4 cups of milk, not 4 cups of wine? So Chaim said it's a very complicated question, he has to think about it. And he told her, after thinking about it for a few minutes, that it's a big debate, there's a lot of different opinions. If you go home, I'll send you an answer, like in an hour for the answer. And she went home, and then he turns to his attendant and says, go buy this woman a full feast for tonight, for the Seder, and bring her also with wine. So the guy said, why should we bring her food? She asked about the wine, and it says if she's making kiddush on milk, that means she has no meat, and she doesn't have anything to feed her children. So that was just a code word that she was actually hungry. Anyways, but theoretically, there's a way maybe to think about it, drinking milk. But the idea of wine is, and that's why we drink wine, is because it's compound. You drink one, then on top, and then on top. So it has a stronger effect. And the depth of that is that in Judaism, there's a tremendous importance to action, doing things. That even though there's you can meditate about it, and you can think about it, and you can dream about it, and you can have all the processes in the mind, but it's always a very strong emphasis on doing things. We have to understand that when we do things, when we do practice and mitzvahs, the actual practice is a way to open up, to connect us to something that's deeper. Sometimes when you do something, a visceral thing, something with the body allows us to open up to certain things that you can think yourself into being a certain way, and then you can actually do yourself into being a certain way. So the physical action of doing something allows us to open up to certain states. And that's when we do the 4 cups of wine. So the 4 cups of wine are divided throughout the Seder night, and they're divided into 4 parts. So you drink the first cup of wine at the beginning of the Seder, you drink the cup of wine at the end of Magid, before you wash your hands again to eat the matzah, and the meal, you eat one right after the meal, you drink 1 cup in the middle, the 3rd cup after the meal, and the 4th cup at the end of Hallel, at the end of the Seder. They're divided into these 4 stages. And 4 is a very dominant number in the Seder. You'll see 4, the repetition of 4 appears throughout the Seder. 4 questions, 4 songs, etc. There's 4, constantly a repetition of 4. In addition to the 4 cups of wine, there's also a 5th cup. And the 5th cup is kind of a mystical cup where you fill the cup up, but you don't drink it. Which is called the Kais Shaliyah. We call it today the cup of Elijah the prophet, which is a cup that you fill up, but you don't drink. You're not. It's not part of the 4 cups of wine. You don't drink it as a separate cup. You could, but we don't. It's not done. But you actually do drink it. Not at the Seder. Because what do you do with the cup? What do you do with the wine from the 5th cup that you poured into the cup of Elijah the prophet? What do you do with that cup? What do you do with that wine? You can't spill on wine. It's good wine. And that's Baltashka, so you're not allowed to do that. So what you actually do with this wine is you pour back into the bottle. And then if you pour back into the bottle, that means tomorrow at some point you're going to drink this wine, or maybe next day or 3 days from now. But that means the wine will be drank. So you're not drinking it as part of the Seder. You're not drinking it part of the order of the events, but you'll drink it at another time. And it's important to understand why you do that. So it's a mysterious 5th cup that's not consciously drank, but it is drank. And not at the Seder, but maybe something that's beyond the Seder.
Are you supposed to drink it at a specific time or just any other time after the
Any other
Seder?
time.
What about the wine we do pour out from the makas?
That's bad wine.
That's bad wine.
It's bad wine. You're not allowed to drink it.
No, that's very much not.
Plague
But you're
wine.
not supposed to pour out, like goblets of wine.
The Makos.
For the plagues, you have to. That has to do with, I don't know if we'll get into that, but that has to do with Tuxedo. That has to do with judgments. And wine is a very powerful thing. And anything powerful, this is a whole long conversation, but everything powerful has to be, you have to feed the beast. This is in very simple language. I don't know if this helps you understand this, but there's a lot of Kabbalistic traditions where when there's a heightened state, there's a recognition that the other negative forces are present, and the way to appease these negative forces is to actually give it something. We do this in it's a long conversation, exactly. This means what it means is another side, what does it mean is other forces. I'm not going to get into this whole thing, it's too long for the conversation. What we do is on Yom Kippur, you do this. You're familiar, right? You have these 2 goats. One goat is offered, the other goat is thrown off. You do this, kapparas, if you do kapparas, So there's some you do this on your tefillin. I don't know if people, you ever notice like little straight hairs in your tefillin. The head tefillin is like hairs of a goat. It's also part of that. There's like a lot of this before, people spill out when they're about to drink water, they spill a little water out of a cup first. There's a lot of these interesting things where wherever there's like an energetic time, you feed a little of the other force.
Huh.
Don't take this literally on any level. I know it sounds this way, but don't take this literal on any level. There's a very big depth to this. If you really want to know about this, okay, so there's a book called The Lightness of Being.
Available on Amazon.
Available on Amazon.com. It's with Lightness of Being. Yossi, if you give me the book, I can tell you exactly what page it is.
Is that related to the unbearable lightness of being?
What's that?
Is that related to the unbearable lightness of being, the Chuck movie or the book?
When after I wrote the book, someone told me that it's a name of a film, but I had no intention to name it, connect it to anything with intention of a film. So
Yom Kippur here.
it's on Yom Kippur, and it has a whole thing about, I'll tell you where it is, so you can look it up. This is very important. Yeah, page 355 in this book. It has to do with like it's a secret that you can only know at 33 years old. It's a whole long thing. Familiar with this? Who's 33?
I'm 33.
All right, it's the secret of 33.
You know when my birthday is?
You want Yom Kippur?
Arab Yom Kippur.
There you go. That's why you want to know. Demonic forces. There's a very long. It's a long chapter, but it explains this topic in great length. What it is, page 3. What is it?
343.
343.
From
353 maybe?
You didn't say it.
No, I did not say 343. You just made that up.
It's close.
Got
No, it's
confused
maybe
with the
353.
No, it was right.
It's 343? It's still around there.
You said 3 something.
355.
350.
That's what I think said in the beginning.
Oh yeah, it was 355. I know that 343 doesn't make sense. Anyways, you were thinking for 43 because of 33. I know. 355.
Wild goat wine.
Is that really? Is that what it's called?
It's Argentina. We had Argentina meal.
This is literally what we're talking about.
A lot of coincidences happening.
It's funny. I had 2 boxes of wine. I forgot to serve it at the meal.
Oh,
I did
wow.
Argentina theme. I forgot to serve it at the meal, so I'm drinking it all week now.
What are they drinking?
Now I'm just drinking it for like lunch or whatever.
Early dinner, late dinner.
Is there a really brief thought on why you drop a little water out before you drink water?
Also, demonic forces.
But a little more specific or not? It's too long.
No, it is really too long.
Okay.
It's a recognition of different parts of self, and there's an inverse. There's a part of us that's very rational. There's a part of us that's chaotic. There's tikkun and toyu, and it's a whole thing. It's about basically some type of. It's a healing process, and it's internal. So a lot of it is internal.
And this is in the Chagim or always you do it?
Actually, Chagim, you don't do it.
So
Pour out.
Only when it's not.
Generally, I mean, some people do also, but generally, every time, yeah.
This is a Kabbalistic tradition. I've only seen Hasidim do it.
No, it's Kabbalistic.
Isn't there something like you do, whatever you do here, impacts it in the higher world?
So therefore,
Like, yeah,
yeah, sure.
yeah.
So why would you feed the demon in this world?
Get rid of them. Appease them.
So it's appeasement. Yeah, so that's what the Zohar said. It's appeasement. You're appeasing the negative force. But what does that mean to appease a negative force? There's only one force in the universe. So what does it mean to appease? It's like a
I
fake.
feel like there's another place where I learned about this recently. Specifically.
I'm a friend. Something.
Yeah,
Where
my
was something-
You wash your hands before you
bench.
before you bench. Yeah. So that's why people that are not Kabbalistically inclined don't do these things. Like they don't do Ma'amar Charnim because they say today you don't have salt. You
So in Litvish world, they don't do Ma'am Acharna?
No,
Really?
a lot of Litvish people do it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's new, because they're Kabbalistic. Anyone that's following Kabbalistic tradition will do it. Anyone that's following it not, if you, let's say, YU guy.
I've never seen a Litvish person pour out a little water. I've only seen Hasidim do that.
It's a Kabbalistic custom.
Seen a lot of people do it.
Yeah. It's a Kabbalistic custom.
Even though you open a bottle of water, they'll pour out the first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the practice. You know, some people are very machmir, they pour it like,
Yeah.
Does that have to do also with like if something positive is gonna happen, there's like more force in the
same thing. It's part of the same thing. Anytime there's birth,
Right.
there's death. Anytime there's purity, there's a possibility of impurity. It's the same. It's actually, we read this in the portion.
This week's parsha.
Exactly. That same idea.
Huh.
That when there's a birth of a child, which is the most beautiful thing, the most life-giving thing, that's when there's impurities.
Yeah.
There's always the possibility, and that's why there's postpartum depression. It's not actually it's not an external thing, it's an internal thing. Anytime there's a person experiencing high, there's a possibility of low, and you have to make sure that you're feeding the lower part in the experience, so making sure that you'll actually go through the experience correctly. So a person gives birth, a person marries with a child, there's always these very high moments in life, and if you don't know how to integrate them correctly, the next day will be always a downfall. You say, oh, I had this euphoric moment, and now...
Is that what you Titz Mitzrayim and then the golden calf?
The same idea. It's exactly the same idea.
So how would you tell
literally the
someone
same
to
thing.
avoid
Yeah, how do you
like
undo that?
postpartum?
This is part of the process. These are the things. This is why we do all these practices. There's a recognition. I'm saying, I'm giving you there's a recognition that there is different parts. That the way I'm celebrating is one way is beautiful. There's also a part of me that feels down, and I recognize that part that's down, the part that's going to pull me down, the part that's more chaotic, that's not. And I feed it, and I recognize it. The moment you recognize a certain thing in yourself, is a way to get over it. If you don't recognize that part of yourself, let's say a person's having a Yom Kippur moment. I don't know what we're talking about, but let's get this. Let's say a person's having a Yom Kippur moment, and a person's really in a very spiritual state, and then they have a Yom Kippur. They're having a spiritual out-of-body experience. They're not eating, and they really feel lofty. And then all of a sudden, like this negative thought comes into their mind, or this lustful thought comes into their mind, or something that's really trivial or angry-based and ego-based. And like, whoa, how did that get here? Like, I'm such a holy person. I'm such a good place, and why? So the natural tendency is just push it aside. Okay, just ignore it. What do you mean? It's not true. And the Kabbalists will say, if you do that, it's just going to come back in with greater vengeance. So acknowledge that part of self. Just give it voice for that 1 minute. Appease it. Say, okay, I got it. It's fine. I get it. You're not tagged along. You're not following along in this process. I give it voice, give it space, feed it, allow it to be, and then it'll just let go. Because the more you resist something, the more it persists.
I was told you're supposed to go right into the study. You know, if you're coming off of this high experience.
Yeah, same idea. You have to. That's channeling it. That's the way you channel that experience. There's ways to do this. So these are techniques that allow a person to recognize the two different sides, and without just ignoring it and pretending it's not there, and then it will not really, not come out wholesome. So people that don't follow a general more Kabbalistic practices, and you're following the external the external practice of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism, there's no room for that place. Like, what does it have to do? When I'm putting on, I'm davening, what are you telling me that I have, negative thought? I have negative thought, push it aside. Like, what? But the deeper understanding is if you're having this negative thought, it's actually part of you. And it's showing up in your consciousness because it's something that's bothering you. And if you don't give it attention, it's going to come down even stronger. So that's the deeper recognition of things that are happening within a person's own psyche, to recognize that. So that's important, how we deal with these things. It's always healthier to recognize what they are, and certainly to recognize that if you're being pulled in a certain direction, if you're trying to pray and your mind is constantly veering off to another direction, and it's not consciously, it's not because you want to think that, because you really want to think what you're saying, and you're constantly moving in a certain direction, you have to ask yourself, like, why am I moving in that direction? Like, are the thoughts that I always entertain? This is my general thoughts that I usually have. Okay, then you have to work on yourself. But if they're not thoughts that you generally have, these seem to be foreign thoughts to you. Why am I being pulled in this direction? Oh, there's something really bothering me. about my life now that's showing up in this more pristine state. As I'm praying and my mind is becoming clear, my consciousness is being, more transparent. This dirt is showing up much stronger because in my normal time way I function, I don't even give attention to those things because I'm so blurry. Everything in my life is blurry, right? So as you become more refined and more subtle, certain defects, but certain negative things show up much more clearly. Like if you have a dirty wall, and then you throw some black paint on it, it's like you're not going to notice it. But if you have a clean, pristine wall, and you put a little dot, you're going to notice it. Some people even call that modern art. You'll see it, and that's really what it is. When you're cleaner, something shows up, and you can see it. So that's the recognition of things that come up. I don't know how we got to this whole thing.
You talked about wine.
Oh, wine, yeah.
Wine.
So wine is very powerful.
And then you asked about
Right.
throwing away the bad wine.
Okay, so that's bad wine, right? Sometimes it is.
A quick question. We had a discussion on Shabbos, and kind of this topic about guilt. Does guilt play a role? Like
No,
what's-
we don't have guilt. Who has guilt?
I'm asking. Does
Person
guilt ever
no,
serve a purpose?
No, guilt is a terrible thing. There's no word for the Torah, no word for guilt.
There is no word for it.
No.
Okay, regret though.
You got something else. Yeah.
Regret's a healthy, like, to
Yeah,
actionable.
it depends the type of regret. Only regrets for things that are. There's a saying that says. It's a midrashic saying. It doesn't say it matters. It's called, and the saying goes, "Rishoy Mulay Mecharatas," that the wicked are full of regrets. Because the person that walks around and says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry." Okay, just stop it. Just stop being sorry and stop doing it. When a person lives with regrets, they're robbing themselves from the
being present.
for the present choice that they can be making right now. Because regret is always about the past. I regret that I did that. I regret that I did that. Certainly with physical things, Baal Shem Tov says that a person should never ever regret their past. It's physical,
Like
the
material
material
things?
things. You can't say, I should have took that job, or I should have married that person, or I should have, I messed up. I could have, if I should have went that direction in life,
You
right?
can't do that.
Absolutely not. He says I don't want to say what he says you're Russian. That's a wicked person. A wicked person is full of these types of regrets, because anyone that says would have, should have, is abikarzis, is heresy. Voltig, kennig, voltig is in Yiddish like I could have, I should have, is heresy. So you should never, ever, ever, ever regret anything that happened in your past on material life. Now you say, I wasn't so honest. I didn't. Okay, fine. That's a healthy thing. And again, it's only healthy because you're not living in the regret state. You're living in a state of, because of that, I'm choosing to be different now. Just to wallow in a state of regret. Say, I should have, I could have, so what? So you could have, so what?
Is that also because everything that happened was meant to happen?
Exactly. It was exactly meant to happen.
So guilt never plays a role in anything.
No,
So why is it so prevalent in religion?
because that's not Jewish.
It happens to be so.
It's so
I know.
Why does
That
the
would be
whole
the
Huge
religion?
guilt, yeah.
That would be the
I
thing
know,
that we're trying to feed.
it's an enigma. It doesn't make sense.
Who created it? Like, how did it come about that it
All
literally
Jewish
runs?
mothers created
Isn't
it.
that come from your ego?
It literally runs the whole system. It's the currency of Yiddishkeit, if we're being honest.
It depends which Yiddishkeit.
Well-
Depends. Yeah, I would say it depends which Yiddishkeit.
Okay.
If you're going to subscribe to that type of Yiddishkeit, you're going to do this to your children. And the moment you're going to stop the craziness, you're not. But yeah, you could. A lot of people function. I don't want to say about Yiddishkeit, just in general. Lots of people function from a very, very low level of consciousness in this world. They function from a place of fear and a place of absence of abundance and a place of it's always flight or fight. I mean, this is the way most people function in this world. It's nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. It happens to be that people that are living at a very low level of consciousness also become now involved in practicing Judaism. So they're doing that in that state of mind. But it's not. The two things are not equated with each other. There are people that are living on a higher state, practicing things in a certain way, and there's certain people on the lower state, practicing things another way. But it's not inherited to the practice, it's inherited to the type of people that are practicing.
What's the connection between low level of Yiddishkeit and being
Low level of consciousness.
low in consciousness?
It's
and
fear-based.
Becoming
it's,
involved in Yiddishkeit. Like,
No, if you're a person that you live in fear, that you're always afraid the world's going to turn it, it's going to fall apart, and everything you have you're going to lose everything. And then you become frum, and you become a balchol, let's say. So then you say that's Yiddishkeit. Yeah, the world's going to be destroyed. Mashiach's going to come. Everyone's going to be. You start projecting your own insecurities into your practice. But if you're living from a different place, then you're going to see it differently. The Baal Shem Tov one says, when you talk about, you read in the Torah talks about Kel Mikamas Hashem, God is the God of vengeance. Okay, so God is vengeance. Now, if you're the Baal Shem Tov, how do you read that? Now the question is, how do you reread it? Because that's a trick. You don't have to reread it. If you're a person like the Baal Shem Tov, how would you read that verse to begin with? Do you understand? There's a difference between rereading something. Rereading something means, I know it says this, but I'm going to try to reread it so it makes something else because it makes sense to me. When there's certain people that live in a very, very high level, when they see something that to most people sounds like a certain thing, they'll see it in a completely different way. The Baal Shem Tov, when he says that God is God of vengeance, not just a reinterpretation, that's the way he sees the verse, what it says. Kel Mikamas Hashem says that God is God of vengeance. Fiyat means that becomes revealed. He said this is similar to the way when a person messes up, what Hashem does to this person, he reveals himself to this person. It's like, for example, he says, let's say a child and a parent. And the parent and the child are not really getting along. And the child hurts the parent. So if the parent is a bigger person, knows that the parent hurt the child hurt the parent because they're not feeling love and they feel dejected and not getting enough attention or whatever. Children, it doesn't have to be children, it can be anybody. So what does the parent do? The parent shows them even more love. And once the child receives more love from their parent, they start feeling bad for what they did. Because before they said, okay, I have nothing to do with my parents. So I hurt them, but I don't really care about them. But now if my parents care so much about me, and I hurt them, it's more painful for the child. So what Hashem says that what is God's vengeance? God's vengeance is that Hashem appears to the child, to the person that sinned, to the person that even more, not less, more. You're following this analogy? That Hashem is revealing more and closer to the child that's actually veering off the direction.
Fire.
It's fire. But it's a completely different way of thinking about it, because when you're living like the Baal Shem Tov, and you're living in a place of pure love and pure openness on the very, very, very highest level of living, you see everything that way. I told someone yesterday that there were two tzaddikim. I'm not going to say one of them, I'll tell you the other one. There are two famous students of the Maggid of Mezrich. And the first one, it says like this. The first one was an Oiv Yisrael. He was a lover of Jews. Lover of people. He was a lover. So whenever he saw a fault in another person, he would always right away judge them favorably. So if he saw, let's say, the famous example, again, I'm not going to say this person's name, when he saw, let's say, someone once came to him and said, there's a Jew with his tefillin, and he's like, scrubbing down the horse with his tefillin. This is an abomination. He's sitting with this tefillin, and he's like rubbing the horse's belly. And this tzaddik comes to see this Jew and says, wow, look what kind of amazing people these are. Even when they're rubbing the belly of the horse, they're wearing tefillin. Which is a totally different way of seeing it. The other one saying is, the guy's wearing tefillin. This is what he's doing. The other one saying, like, look, what kind of great tzaddik this guy is. He's doing this minimal work, and he's wearing tefillin. So that's judging favorably. And then it says about the Mezusha Hanipali, he said he's even a bigger tzaddik because he doesn't see the fault. He doesn't have to justify the person's action. He never sees the fault. So some person's you're seeing something negative and you're reinterpreting it as something that's positive. Or you're judging favorably the other person. The other person doesn't have judgment. There's no judgment. With your children, you can understand it. Someone that you're very close to, you can understand it. Sometimes you'll say, you're walking down the street and you're very judgy about this guy. Like, whoa, why is he walking like a madman? Like, what's wrong? Why is he cutting me off? You have a whole list of things why this person is wrong. And then if it's your child, you'll say, okay, listen, he's having a hard day, and or he's going through a hard time, which means there's a judgment, but you're judging them favorably. And sometimes, let's say it's a little tiny kid, because this is when it's the easiest. It's a baby. The baby takes a cup of milk and pours it over your head. He'll say, oh, I'm going to judge them favorably because really they need it. It's like, it's a baby. It's a baby. You love them. You don't even see that they still have a cup of milk in the back of your head. You follow?
So, by this train of thought that you're saying, today there's like a massive movement of delving into our past and our trauma and all the things that parents did to us. So 1 second. It's a pretty, even a lot of the rabbis, maybe even some of the rabbis this rabbi knows, are really embracing it.
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
So what do you mean? So a lot of the world is spending their time today.
Yeah, that's what the world looks in a very good place.
Right.
This is like the proof.
So what do you tell them? Like, guy comes to you, says, I had a terrible past, or...
Okay, listen, it's not an answer to give them 1 foot.
Right.
The guy really has a traumatic past. They're going to have to deal with their past.
Right.
Somehow they have to heal from their past. I just think dwelling in your past doesn't do any good to anybody.
What does it mean, dwelling or not dwelling?
It's a totally different conversation. The only conversation you have to have is that I only exist right now. We talked about this the first time.
Yeah.
The only real moment is now. That's it. There's no past. The past is gone. It's you, and in this present moment, you have choices, and you could put on this lens of glasses or that lens of glasses, and that's your choice. You have to empower people in the present moment to have the correct filters the way they look at their past, not to look at themselves as a victim, but to look at themselves as a creator of their past, because that's what you're actually doing anyways, whether you're conscious or not. No one remembers things past. What's past is past. You only remember things through the present, the prism of the present. And the only reality that it does exist is the present, because the past is gone. So you can either go to a place that's illusionary and a fantasy that doesn't exist and be there and be busy with that world, or you can say the only place that is real is now, and have choices. There are certain things that were done to me because that affected me in a certain way, and how can I deal with that right now in this present moment to choose how I want to live my life in a correct and better way, and not to be a victim of my past experiences, to be the creator of my present experience moving forward. And that's the question. Do you want to live as a victim? And a lot of people love to live as victims because when their life is not working out, the easiest thing to say is, I'm a victim. If you know my parents, if you know the things that happened to me, I'm not arguing with you. You are. You had a terrible life, and Hashem knows why, and I can't give a reason for that. But your now is now. So now you have a choice. And if a person can't, you have to help the person pick up the pieces to get to that place. But that's what really therapy should be, and it's moving in that direction anyways. The people that understand therapy today, it's not therapy, that's not Freud, it's not 100 years ago. People are thinking in a much more empowered way. So that's that.
So how do we take the energy of Pesach and escaping Egypt and bring it down to ourselves?
Okay. This is
We
what
were at the wine.
We're at the wine. This is what we're gonna do. So the first thing to know.
Back to.
Yeah. Okay. The first thing that we have to remember. So there are 4 stages. To answer your question very quickly, and then we'll get into the details. Is Pesach night is what the Ari calls Gadlus Rishon and Sheni, or Gadlut Rishon and Sheni, like first greatness, second greatness, that is gifted to us. That normally, in order for us to move forward in our life, we have to do a lot of work, and then there's breakthroughs. You break through, and then there's another breakthrough, and hopefully you're moving forward. Pesach is called Passover, which means something that's passed over, which means it skips levels. There is no process. Pesach is not about process. Pesach is to get to the place that's beyond the process. And in the place that's beyond the process, it's instantaneous. And that's why the first thing that we do on Pesach, even though everything on Pesach is a dichotomy, which means everything in Pesach is divided into 2. We said 4, but it's really 2 in its essential ingredient, is you're always balancing 2 separate things. You're saying you're eating foods that represent freedom, and you're eating foods that represent slavery. So you're eating bitter herbs, and you're eating, reclining. You're drinking wine, and you're dipping into bitter salt water. There's a question and there's an answer. There's a child and there's a parent. everything works in this dichotomy of two, right? And this is process. This is process. And the peak of the Seder is to get to the place that's beyond the process. And that's instantaneous. That's instantaneous growth, instantaneous enlightenment. It's gifted. But in order to get to that gifted place, you just have to be open to it. So if you really want to receive freedom, we'll talk about the type of freedoms you want to receive, but if you really want to receive freedom on Pesach, the most important thing to do is to be open to receive it. So you could think about it, desire it, imagine it, do all the things to get yourself in the right state, and then at the same state, now I want to receive it. And that's going to be gifted to me. It's a divine gift that's given to us. Like the story of the people in Egypt, that they were stuck and they're in their own darkness, and then they were thrusted into freedom. Halal Avedazar, Halal Avedazar. There was idol worshippers, they were idol worshippers, and they reached. And this is called godless. That's why the first thing we do in Pesach night, and even though there's always this dichotomy, which also we start, we start with like the negative things, that we were slaves in Egypt, that our parents were idol worshippers, and then we continue the story, and then we were chosen, and then we left Egypt, and then we were free, right? So it goes from one side to the other side. But the first thing that you do on Pesach night is kind of paradoxical. I mean, I don't know how else you could do it, but it's kind of paradoxical, because the first thing you do on Pesach night is make Kiddush. And in Kiddush, the first cup of wine, according to the Ari, is the highest cup of the wine. That's the height. That's like the highest level of wine, of moichin, of like this type of intelligence that comes down to you. And you would think that in the world of process, the way the Seder would start would be, is that first you would have a child, ask questions. There's all restrictions, concealments. The child would ask questions. You'd eat mar, you would eat something bitter. You would talk about the hardship. Then you would make Kiddush and say, and now I'm making Kiddush. Now that I took us out of Egypt, and now we're celebrating, and now we're free. And then move to the freedom state. You would think that everything that's, all the negative parts, or all the small states, or constricted states, would come first. Right? That's what would make sense in order. Like the immature comes before the mature. So the immaturity means like the child comes before the adult. The question comes before the answer. The bitter comes before the sweet. That's how you would think. But you don't do that. You start to say that the first thing you do is Kaddish. You pick up a cup, you make a cup, and you drink a cup of wine. Which means it's symbolic of what the night is about. That it's symbolic that now you're just being thrust and you're being gifted spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental greatness. Godless. And godless means clarity. That's what it really means. Moichin. Moichin is intelligence, and it's moichin of ima, the moichin of bina, which is wine. And the moichin of bina means a type of intelligence and clarity about your life. And this is why there are 4 cups. The 4 cups correspond to 4 types of constrictions that we experience in our lives throughout the year, and generally. And these 4 cups, these 4 types of constrictions, correspond to the 4 primary exiles. So it's something about the 4 Goliaths, the 4 primary exiles, which is a Persian exile, which is the story of Purim, the Babylonian exile, which is the story of the destruction of the first temple, and the 3rd exile is the Greek exile, which is the Hanukkah story, and the 4th exile is the Roman exile, which is the destruction of the 2nd temple. These are considered these 4 Are you familiar with the 4 exiles? It's in the prophecy of Daniel, and he sees these 4 different types of animals, different types of materials, and they correspond to these 4 existential exiles. They also represent 4 exiles within ourselves. So the Persian exile represents bodily exile. I'll explain what that means. Bodily constriction, bodily Egypt. There's, for the body, the Persian. The Babylonian represents the spirit, the soul. The Greek represents the intelligence, intellect. The Hellenistic, the philosopher. And the Romans represent existential. Okay, these are the four exiles. Now in the story, in the very big story, the macro story, historically there are 4 exiles. The people of Israel leave Egypt, receive the Torah, they go to their destiny, they go to Israel, They settle in the land, and it's pretty, wow, I wouldn't say great, but it's like, things are unfolding in that world. They build a base of Mikdash, they have sovereignty, there's kings, and things are working out. And then there is the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar comes and destroys the first base of Mikdash. And the destruction of the first base of Mikdash was the first time that Jews went into, they went into voluntary exile. People lived all over the place, but into forced exile. It was the first time that the Jewish people were forced into exile. And that's when the Jews moved to Iraq, Iran, or Babylonia, that parts of the world, Mesopotamia, that parts of the world. And it broke the spirit of the people. The destruction of the first base of Mikdash broke the spirit of the people, broke the nefesh of Klal Yisrael, the spirit of the people, because we were a self-sovereign people in our own land, with our own army, with our own place of serving in the base of English, and then we're just living in someone else's land. That broke the nefesh, the spirit of the people. The second episode, major episode in Jewish history, was the story of the Purim story, which there was a decree by the Persian king, to kill every single Jewish people in his kingdom, which was a threat of physical annihilation. Not the spirit of the people, but to physically annihilate the people. That was the second story. The third story is the story of Hanukkah, which is when the Greeks took over, the Assyrian Greeks, took over Israel and started bringing in Hellenistic ideas. And this was a big clash between two civilizations, in Greece and Jerusalem. And it was also a clash, it was an intellectual, really, it was an exile of the intellect, of the minds. And that was really the battle at that time. I don't want to get into the story of Hanukkah, but it's really a battle whether empirical knowledge, wisdom, is the highest possibility, like it's Aristotelian philosophy, to say it a little differently, or prophecy. Is there something higher in the human intellect, or human intellect is the highest capacity is what you see, and to figure out what you're seeing. And that was this big argument. And the fourth one is the story of the Roman exile, which is the destruction of the Second Temple, which the Romans represents the exile which we're currently in, technically, which is like an existential exile. It has a hodgepodge of a lot of things. Let's understand this internally. We're talking about it.
Doesn't matter. No. We have a rule. Don't for it.
That's true. So there are four types. There are four types. There are four types of exile. He's right. There are four types of exiles. Internal exiles. Which means there are four things that don't allow us to be what we want to be in this world, even though sometimes we know we should be doing it. And there are four things that hold us back. There's our physical selves, our emotional self, our mental self, and our existential self. What that means is as follows. The physical self is like this. I know, let's say a person says, I know that it would be really good for me physically if I did this and that, if I took a walk every day, if I dieted, or I ate better, whatever, I don't know, whatever is not relevant. Or other things I would like to do, I would like to go daven in the morning, or I would like to go learn, I'd like to go to a shiur. I know, I understand all these things. I just can't. I physically can't get out of bed. I can't wake up in the morning. It's not possible. I would like to do it. I really like to go help you, schlep your bags, but I'm really tired. Now, the physical excuse that we make is an excuse. It's an excuse that people make for themselves constantly, and we physically don't have the stamina, the time. It's not the right time. It's not the right place. So all this types of limitations that we put on ourselves is connected to the exile, the internal exile, the internal alienation on a level of physicality. It's one type of exile. And then sometimes you push yourself and you see, actually, I could. I thought I couldn't. I thought that I can't have a normal day if I didn't drink coffee. I thought that if I don't, that I can only walk a certain amount, but I couldn't walk. All of a sudden you're pushing the limits, the boundaries, and you can see actually much more. But there's a certain limitation we put on ourselves physically. The second type of limitation is emotional limitations. Emotional limitations is like, I know theoretically this is what I should be doing. I'm just not in the mood. I'm not feeling it now. When I feel it, I'll do it. I'm not in the right. My heart is not there now. Yeah, I know this is what I should do. I should get married. It maybe makes sense, but I need to be there emotionally, and I'm not there. Whatever. Use your own imagination for other things. But that's there's an emotional type of exile and an emotional type of alienation that's not allowing you to be present. The third one is mental. Like I don't have the bandwidth. It's too much. I'm holding too many ideas in my head. I can't add another thing to my my brain. I'm exploding. Barely can figure out my life. What's going on? Don't give me another thing to do. Then there's like a certain there's a cap in my intellectual capabilities that I can't do more. Right? So another type of limitation, which is another deep type of exile. So there's physical, there's emotional, there's mental. And then there's like spiritual, existential. Existential means, I would say like it's a combination of a lot of different things. You could say you're tired, you could say, but I think the core of that idea is really apathy. You become apathetic, and this is actually really what we're suffering in this culture that we have now. Is people are just apathetic. There's total apathy. No one really cares anymore about anything, besides Jews, but generally people don't care about things. I mean, that's maybe a good thing, so at least they care about something. But people don't really care about things. It's like, no, people are just like, people are dead. There's a certain apathy to life. There's a certain dullness. People are on screens all day. There's something very apathetic to this generation. So the Seder, the order of the 4 cups, represents the breaking of all of these 4 klippas, these four exiles. And we do them in steps. And they actually correspond to the klippa and then what we're doing in these things. The first thing that we do, the first thing that we do on the Seder night is we make kiddush. Because that's godless. You go into the state of godless. We should make kiddush. Making kiddush literally means making a move. That's what it means. It means getting off your couch and standing up and saying, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm going to celebrate now Pesach. I'm going to make a Seder. It's a physical action that you're doing that's saying, even if I am physically not in the mood, to undo the klipa of physically not in the mood, or physically not able to do it, is to just do it. And to put yourself forward. So Kaddish, the word Kaddish means also from the word Kiddush, and Kedusha means to separate. Which means I'm separating myself from my couch, or from my mundane reality, or from my lazy self, and I'm tying myself, it doesn't work, tying myself, in Yiddish words, like I'm gargling myself. I'm like putting myself forward, and I'm ready to make Kiddush. And that's the first declaration. And I'm going to drink a cup of wine. So I'm going to do it. That is a way to again, you're receiving all these gifts. That's what Pesach is. You're receiving the gifts. It's Passover. It's this idea of it's matana. It's a gift. But the way to integrate it is, I'm going to receive the gift, and I'm going to drink this cup of wine. I'm imbibing. I'm drinking this. I'm internalizing this idea, and it's becoming part of me. And it's physically going to have an effect on me. Like physically, it's going to change the chemical in my brain just because I drank a little wine. And so I'm doing this real, and I'm really present. I'm going to do this. That's the first thing you do. The second step that you do in the Seder night, and that's why you can drink a cup after this process, is Magid. And what is Magid? Magid means to speak, to tell the story of the going out of Egypt, to speak of the story. And it's not just important to speak about the story that happened in the past, about the collective Egypt, that we were enslaved and we left Egypt, which arouses a certain type of emotion. Remember, you're stuck emotionally. You want to unstuck yourself emotionally. So that arouses emotions. And you have to say the Haggadah with a loud voice, Dari says, and with a lot of joy. But also at the end of the Haggadah, you actually say, every generation, a person has to lie, a person has to see themselves as if they left Egypt, which means we have to internalize the story and make it personal. So when you're talking about Magid, you're saying, in the beginning there was idol worshippers. In the beginning we were slaves, and then Hashem took us out of slavery and we reached freedom. And then you say, and me, and what's with my life? Where did I experience miracles in my life? Where was the time when I was stuck and then I became unstuck? Where are the things in my life that I can be grateful for and I can say these are the miracles that happened in my life? You have to think about that, and you have to speak about it, because when a person speaks, verbalizes their emotions, verbalizes even their experiences. There's a mantika that when you speak about something, and actually also do that. When I speak about something, I start expressing myself, because the moment you start speaking about something, it becomes much more real. Dying to live, you just kind of believe a person that has hardship, they should speak about it. Speaking about it becomes real, becomes a living thing. So when I speak about my life, now if there's no one to speak to physically, if you don't want to talk to because whatever the person sitting next to you, talk to yourself. But make sure you're saying it. Like think about your life. Think about things that are miraculous, things that happen, that are extraordinary things that happen in your life. Things that you were stuck and whatever, small things, big things, and try to imagine what are the things where you are holding in your life that you can see the story of the going out of Egypt, the release, and to open up your emotions, just to be more real with your emotional state.
Do you think talking to someone else and then even talking to yourself will have the same effect?
No, talking to another person will be better, but you need to be the right.
But if no one's there and you just spoke to yourself,
The Chazal say that if you have a child, ask the question the child asks. If not, your wife asks. If not, you speak to yourself. So somehow you're gotta get it out.
but that's considered getting it out.
Someone, yeah, with voice. Speak to Hashem, be open.
What about to a stranger on a bus bench?
Yeah, that's always good. That always works out.
How relevant is that?
Like
Yeah.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
That's always works.
Eliyahu Navi.
Exactly.
No, if anything, if you speak to yourself, speaking to Hashem, that should be even more than speaking to your friend.
Yeah.
You always, when you're speaking to your friend, you're speaking to Hashem always. You're always speaking to Hashem. That's the Zohar. So when Yehuda speaks to Yosef, he's talking to Hashem. Always talking to Hashem.
Only you and Hashem.
Okay. Anyways, this is the second stage. So you have to get through this opening and this freedom and then you drink a cup of wine. So the wine again is compounded. You're gonna feel more relaxed. You're gonna feel more open. And the biggest exile, the story of Egypt, is like the Zohar says. The exile of Egypt is the exile of speech. That it's a galus adibur. It's an exile of speech. That there's sometimes a person's so traumatized, is so stuck that they can't even speak about the things that are bothering them. And speaking it is a way of releasing it, becoming easy. It's a Pesach. It's a Pesach, the mouth that speaks, not paroi, not the negative mouth. The whole idea of opening up, speaking it. So you have to speak. And that corresponds to the emotional level. So it's the second cup. The third cup is where we do all the mitzvahs. That's like the serious, those are the serious things, and the meal. But the third cup is all the mitzvahs. So you do, technically you eat the Pesach, you eat the matzah, you eat the mar, you eat the karach, which is intentional. Like you have to be mindful, you have to have intention, you have to have kavanah, you have to have intention. Mar generally is connected to intellect, but just a way to break the negativity or the exile of intellect and giving constrictions on your intellect is to start small. Say, I can't learn this thing, it's too much. Okay, this you can learn. I can't do this thing because I can't hold so much space in my head. Okay, but you can start with small, and you build on the success. So the kavanah is like the small intention. Have a small intention what you're going to do, and hopefully that will bring you to a bigger intention, and your life will be more intentional. And that will expand you on an intentional level and mind level, which is the third cup. So then you're drawing it down into your life. And the fourth cup, by the third cup, hopefully you're open. For the fourth cup is when you say Hallel. And saying Hallel is just being grateful. And the way to break out of being apathetic, in general, even about your life, is to be grateful for things that you do have. And that's like the number one ingredient to getting out of apathy. Just to become grateful, just to recognize what's going on in your life and becoming grateful. So in Hallel is the time that we're grateful. Historically, and for the future, and for your life. Again, it's both a microcosmic story, a macro story, and a macro story. And the micro story is about my Hallel. What do I have to be grateful about? And thinking about things that you're grateful. And that's the way you're able to drink your fourth cup and slowly break out of these things on the night of Pesach. And then you get to the fifth hidden cup. Because the fifth hidden cup, which you don't drink, represents the freedom that you achieve after all the processes. Because processes, by definition, you can never reach real freedom through a process. Because by definition, a process means that there's always an opposite. Like if I say I have to walk, 10 steps up, okay, then I can go 10 steps down. If I can say the answer to my life's question is going to be the freedom by getting the answer, but then you're going to have tomorrow even a deeper question, and then you're going to have another question, another answer. Because by definition, things that are in process or in a duality there's always an opposite. And ultimately, that's why it's Yechida. The fifth cup corresponds to the constriction. The fifth cup corresponds to there's a Yud Hey and a Vav and Hey, which are the 4 cups of the wine. And there's actually an argument between the Mukbalim if it's up or down, which way you're going. There's a Yud Hey, Vav and Hey. That's the Ari's version. And then there's other versions like the Gra, and others the Shalot, and it's actually Hey, Vav, Hey, Yud, which means you're going down up. So either you're going down or up. And I don't think it's really an argument because up and down is part of this, is in the world of unity, they're actually the same thing. Because the higher you get, the more expansive you become. So there's vertical up and horizontal wide. So as you're getting vertically up, you're becoming horizontally wide. So, which means that you're taking up more space, or you're including more space. And ultimately, you get to the place of the constriction, which is the point of the fifth cup, which is beyond the process. That's a place of just being present. And that's the ultimate idea of freedom, and that you reach on the 15th step of the Seder. The 15th step of the Seder is Nirtzah. So there are 15 steps, and each step you do something. Like Kaddish, you make Kiddush. In Urchatz, you wash your hand. And Moitzi, you wash your hands for bread. And Matzah, eat matzah. Mari, eat maru. Right? Each one you do something, and then you come to Nirtzah. What do you do in Nirtzah?
Nothing.
Exactly, you don't know anything. Here's what means it's accepted. The 15th step is the being the place of the acceptance. So sometimes you have to get through the process to recognize that you're ready there. And then when you're ready there, so everything's perfect, and then you have a beautiful Pesach, and you're free. So this is some of the steps of the four steps, what they represent, and how we're gonna get through them, and what each one has to achieve, and how we can achieve them, and have this intention as you go through the steps. So remember, this is a step connected to the physical, this is connected to the emotional, this is a step connected to the spiritual, to the mental, this is a step connected to the existential, and to get to that place. And that's why in the fifth cup, you said you don't consciously drink it, because if you're consciously drinking, that's another action. It's beyond action. You'll have it, because it includes also action as well. But it's not going to be part of the Seder. It's not going to be part of the order, the structure that you're supposed to create. And that is the rest of the story.
Fine.
Oh yeah.
All
Thank you very
right.
much, Rabbi.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
So really, there's 5 exiles, right? Because the Egyptian exile.
The Egyptian exile is considered like the father of all exiles. So Kol HaGoli is Nekroim al Shem Mitzrayim. All the exiles are considered like Egypt. So just like the story of the Gan Eden, there's like the place of Gan Eden, and then Mishami part of Bar Russian, and then from the place of Gan Eden, the 4 rivers that come out. So Egypt represents like the parallel Gan Eden, the opposite of that. And from there are 4 streams that follow. So the 5th one is
The source of all
the source of all
exiles.
that, as it's correct.
I just had a thought, like a lot of people leave the town, are they just trying to experience that freedom as in like when we left Egypt?
A lot of people live town where they live for Pesach.
Yeah.
No, a lot of
They're
people
going on
think that
vacation.
a lot of people think that freedom cannot be achieved in the place where they are.
Yeah, because they're
That's the
limiting their
mistake.
mind, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they come back after Pesach and they're all depressed. 'Cause they're
Right. That makes sense.
That's usually what happens after Pesach, especially people who left. You left, you thought something's going to happen, and then you came back.
They spent all that money. It's like 20 grand, 30 grand.
It's also another problem.
Or they show up in Orlando and then they got double or triple booked.
Is Orlando still a thing?
It was a few years ago. It was the fiasco. The Airbnb.
I think there's probably 100,000 from Jews in Orlando on Pesach.
Wow.
Was it COVID? Was it 2020?
Yeah, but you're supposed to keep it, so I don't understand.
What?
It's supposed to be a gift.
Yeah, it is a gift.
Mm.
What do you think?
So you're supposed to keep it.
Of course you're supposed to keep it. What are you saying?
So people come back and they thought that something.
Oh, I'm saying, but no, because a lot of times people think that if I go there and if I'm that place,
But
then
it's-
it's going to cheat. You could travel. It's not against travel. The Gemara says, or Gamliel says, that he's envious of the lazy people that don't travel on Yom Tov.
Why?
Well, he was talking about El Rego.
No. He's talking about this after Churban. Because people have there's like a certain thing that if I want to do something good or interesting, I have to do it somewhere else. There's a mentality.
Yeah.
It's
So it's better
It's a
not to have
limitation
that
of
mentality?
mind.
Of course, it's always better not to have this mentality.
Uh-huh.
This mentality means there's always a better place to be
Right.
than you are.
Right.
There's no other. If you want to travel, okay, fine. That's not because I can't do it here. I would like to do it. That's the only place I can do it. Or a better time. People live with constantly some weirdness. Like there is better. That's better.
Yeah.
The past is better. The future is better. Right here, right now.
The biggest tragedy is that, for most kids in the previous generation growing up, they remember the Pesach Seder in their parents' house. That was a
Your
big part of their
grandparents' house,
Judaism,
yeah.
their grandparents.
Yeah.
That thing is gone now. So kids today, they remember Pesach and like a Pesach program. It really affects a kid when he grows up and he remembers, the nostalgia of being a kid,
Not
and
good.
his family.
Okay.
How'd your mother do Pesach? How'd your father do Pesach? How'd she cook? What'd she
Okay,
make?
now they can have different memories.
They can have
What
what?
pizza did you have
The
on
waiters,
Pesach? And
the
what
waiters,
what
the
kind
waiters
of
kicking them
music
out.
did you have on
Waiters
Pesach?
kicking them out at 11 o'clock at night from the dining hall.
Yeah,
Well,
you need
I
your
mean,
What is that?
you need your parents and your.
It's going to be over in another
grandparents
few
thing.
years. It's not going to happen anymore.
What do you
Really?
mean?
Pesach programs are going to go away.
Why?
You'll see.
The fads,
It's very
the
damaging.
fad's gonna end.
The fad's going to totally end.
It's very damaging.
It
The
doesn't work. It doesn't really make any sense.
Because Mashiach's coming.
That's for sure.
I know couples. That,
But I'm saying besides it, Mashiach will be here. which
I know
definitely
couples
will
that are
happen.
married for 20 years. They never
It's
been
going to
Pesach
stop.
in their
No,
house
it's going
once.
to stop. It's over. In another 5 years, it's all over.
Wait,
If you have
what's gonna
family, I
happen?
don't.
They're going to stop doing Pesach programs.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be over. It was a fad because people thought that
Right.
People are gonna miss the way it used to be.
people are, and during COVID, people got a sense of this, and that's why the Pesach programs all went down tremendously.
You think it
There's
went
going to
down
be a new
since
types
then?
of programs. There's going to be a new type of program.
Yeah.
The new program is that you're going to actually they're going to cater Pesach for you in your house.
Yeah, that would
Yes.
be amazing.
That's what's going to
Because people don't want to do the work, right? That's
Right.
it.
People don't want to work. That's not changing. But they want to be in their house. They want to be in their space.
Yeah.
And with the luxury
Bring
of not
in the
having to.
entertainers.
Exactly. Yeah, you're going to have Martha David jumping around.
I think you're very optimistic, Rabbi.
I think the rabbi's right.
You'll see. Right?
No, but also
Yeah.
if the house that you live in is
Yeah.
nicer than the resort.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
listen, Rabbi.
Yeah, my friend was telling me his father was complaining that they went to a program and he didn't have his Seder plate. He didn't have what it.
Yeah.
it
Right. Right.
yeah.
It's a joke. These
My family
starving
never even
dining
thought to
halls
do
are
it.
a joke. It's commercialized. It takes away the whole soul.
No, there's never an option to do it for my family. Yeah.
Meanwhile, where are you going for Pesach?
I'm right here in Soul Space.
Sorry, apologies.
Going to Israel.
I thought you were, describing or telling us a
No,
little bit.
I'm going to Chavat Ma'on.
I'm right
It's
here.
the Hilltop Youth
Danielle,
in the Shtachim.
Are you
It's
going away
south
during
of
those other
Hebron.
days or no?
maybe.
In the real,
Why?
Think of things.
in the thick.
Okay.
What is it?
The
Program?
Arab sex. Yeah, it's a
Wow.
program called My Sister's House.
I mean,
In your sister's
On the
house?
hilltop, yeah.
Wow, that's not a
Costa
program.
Rica.
No, it's a real.
The hilltop
Your
in
Pesach
Hebron?
program on the other
It's south of Hebron.
After the
It's
Seders.
near Hebron. It's about 20 minutes
Not
away
Israel.
from Hebron.
What's the place called?
Ma'on, Chavat Ma'on. So it's not even Ma'on. It's the hilltop. It's the farm of Ma'on, which is like a hilltop outside of the Yishuv, Moshav.
What is
Yishuv.
it, like Moshe?
No, Ma'on is a Moshav, and they grow. What do they grow? Cherries, and they have cows and chickens. They have a whole thing there, and then my sister lives on. Chava means a farm. They live on the farm outside of,
That's cool.
in the forest, in the JNF
That's where you're
forest.
going.
That's where I'm going. That's where my sisters live.
That's great.
Very
Yeah. God willing.
It's definitely not a program.
No,
Opposite.
the Americans show up to the program, they'd have another thing coming. It's a lot of, Baruch Hashem. It's like,
Share good news, nights or so.
amen.
Oh man.
interesting, the metaphor about chewing the maror. I don't think I ever chewed the maror long enough to get to the
You do it very
sweet.
sweet.
But if you when you say you chew something over, it's like you think about it over.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
It's Eichel.
We have to chew it until it becomes sweeter.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a Kabbalistic thing to do that. Make sure you do that.
Well, also
I
use
would
it
do
with
that.
Harosis to get sweeter too.
Yeah, very little cars.
I think
Take
we
the actual
always had
maror,
too much
Take
charoset
a
in it.
bite of it.
Oh, I always eat
Slice.
the raw white
Yeah,
one
slice,
for sure.
Yeah.
slice piece
It's
of
the
maror,
best.
raw maror, eat it,
Yeah.
chew it, and then it gets so sweet. You're gonna
How
cry
much
in your
have they
teeth.
have to chew it?
First, your skin has to turn
Yeah,
red.
you turn red,
And
and then
then
Yeah,
Then it
it's
gets
very
really
bitter.
sweet.
If you can withstand the first bitterness, I've never done it. Wow.
you chew
Yeah,
it.
Really?
Just like-
Oh, you gotta try.
I mean,
You
I've
gotta-
I've eaten the maror, but I've never. I don't think I've ever chewed it long enough.
Yeah, sweet.
Swallowing is
Do it.
cheating.
Yeah,
You
you
should do
gotta-
like a practice
I always
run.
added the
Next
charoset
class,
to.
we should do a practice run on the maror. I'll bring maror.
We'll
next
test
Yeah,
time.
like, and
We'll
then we
see
can
if
see
it'll
how many
go.
chews does
Bring
it take.
bring
over
maror
the
next time.
rest of
We'll
Are we
eat some
allowed
maror.
to? Are we allowed to eat it? So close to Pesach?
You can't. Yeah, that's our Pesach anymore.
But we could. So maybe I'll do it next week. We'll have a practice run.
Yeah, whoever's into it.
Yeah, let's do it, and then we can figure out how many chews.
That's
does
the
it
reason
take.
why you
But
can't.
maybe next week we do a mock Seder.
Why can't you have?
Huh?
Just
Too
bring
many
maror.
Seders, too many Seders.
Just bring maror. We'll be fine. You're getting crazy.
Alright, next
Why
week,
is it
mock
godless?
Seder.
Why is it godless Rishon and Sheni?
Because it's godless shlishi.
Is that the first night it's godless Rishon and Sheni, or just?
No, godless rishon and sheni. There's godless rishon is bina, moichin the bina, which is 2 cups of wine. Godless sheni is moichin the abba, to the three matzahs.
So that's why it's on the first night. You get both. You get the
Yeah.
3 matzahs and the 4 cups.
Right. So the difference is that the matzah is bland and wine is tasty. Right? That's the difference. The difference in abba and iba between chachma and bina is that bina is like a type of understanding that's very it's fleshy. Like I understand my life. Chachma is like more intuitive.
Right. So flash of
It's a
intuition.
flash intuition, so it represents more the matzah. That's why you have 3 matzah, chachma, bina, das. But there are 3 forms of chachma.
Wow. But we say nichnas yain yotzei sod. So that is that what you just told us. That's the secret of the wine.
That's the secret of the wine. Okay. There?
I thought of something.
Yeah.